The medical bay stank of burnt circuits and desperation.
Dr. Marcus Webb pressed his fingers against his temples, staring at the diagnostic screen that showed nothing but bad news. His supplies were running critically low, the station's life support systems were failing in 3 sectors, and he had exactly 47 refugees crammed into a facility designed for 20.
But none of that mattered right now.
What mattered was the small alien girl sitting on the examination table, her sightless eyes staring at nothing. Her name was Koresh, or at least that's what the translator approximated it as. She belonged to a species called the Valorians, a proud warrior race with crystalline skin that shimmered like opals under certain light. They were fierce, honorable, and currently being hunted to extinction by the Kreth Empire.
Koresh was one of the lucky ones.
She'd escaped with her father when their colony world burned. Lucky, Marcus thought bitterly, except for the genetic condition that had left her blind since birth. Among the Valorians, physical perfection was prized above all else.
A blind warrior was no warrior at all.
Her father, Torvash, stood in the corner of the medical bay, his massive frame seeming to shrink with every passing moment. He'd exhausted every medical facility in 3 star systems, spent his family's fortune, called in every favor he had.
No one could help his daughter.
"I'm sorry," Marcus said, "not for the first time.
I don't have the equipment here. Even if I did, Valerian neurology is completely different from human physiology. I wouldn't know where to begin."
Torvash's translator crackled.
"You are the 7th doctor to tell me this. The 7th to turn us away."
His voice carried no anger, only a weariness that Marcus recognized all too well. It was the sound of a parent who had run out of hope. Koresh reached out blindly, found her father's hand.
"It's okay, Papa. I'm fine. We should go." But she wasn't fine.
Marcus could see it in the way she held herself, the careful way she moved. She'd learned to navigate a world she couldn't see, but that didn't mean she didn't want to see it. In her other hand, she clutched a small data pad that read descriptions of things to her.
Sunsets.
Forests. Her mother's face, from before the war. Marcus looked at the girl, really looked at her, and something inside him broke. Or maybe it was something that had been broken for a long time, ever since he'd left Earth, that finally started to mend. He'd come out to the frontier to escape his past, to hide from the mistakes he'd made, the lives he'd failed to save. He'd told himself he was done trying to be a hero. But, looking at Koresh, he couldn't walk away. "Wait," Marcus heard himself say.
"There might be something I can try."
Torvash turned slowly, hope and suspicion warring on his alien features.
"What do you mean?"
Marcus moved to his personal locker, the one he kept sealed and locked at all times.
Inside were things he'd sworn never to use again. Medical equipment that was technically illegal in 17 systems. Nanosurgical tools that could rewrite genetic code on a molecular level.
The kind of technology that could save lives or create monsters, depending on who wielded it. He'd stolen it all from a black market research facility 5 years ago, right before he disappeared. It was supposed to be his insurance policy, something he could sell if he ever got desperate enough.
Instead, it had become a reminder of everything he'd left behind.
"I have some experimental equipment," Marcus said carefully.
"It's designed to interface directly with neural tissue and create artificial sensory pathways.
In theory, I could use it to give her sight, even if her biological eyes don't function properly." Torvash stepped forward, his massive hand gripping the edge of the examination table hard enough to dent the metal.
"In theory? I've never performed the procedure on a Valerian before. Hell, I've never performed it on anyone before. The success rate in simulations was only about 60%. And, even if it works, there could be side effects we don't understand. Rejection. Neural degradation. Sensory overload." Marcus met Torvash's gaze. "I'm not going to lie to you. This is dangerous. She could die on the table." Silence filled the medical bay.
Somewhere in the station, someone was shouting, probably another fight breaking out over rations. The air recyclers hummed their struggling song.
Marcus waited, knowing he'd just offered a desperate father an equally desperate solution. Kiresh spoke first. What are my chances if we do nothing? Marcus blinked. The girl was calm, composed, far more mature than her equivalent human age. You'll remain blind. But, you'll be alive. And, I'll never see my father's face. Never see the stars everyone talks about. Never see anything except the darkness. Kiresh turned her head toward where she thought Marcus was standing. She was off by about 10 degrees. I want to try. Kiresh, no, Torvash said. I cannot lose you too. Papa, you've spent everything trying to help me. Our credits. Your honor standing among the fleet. You've begged and bargained and fought for me. Now someone is offering a chance, maybe the only chance I'll ever have. Her voice was steady. I want to see you, Papa. Just once. Even if it's just for a moment before I die, I want to see you. Marcus watched Torvash's resolve crumble. How could any parent refuse that request? He certainly couldn't have. How long do you need to prepare? Torvash asked, his voice rough. 6 hours to calibrate the equipment and run compatibility simulations with Kiresh's neural patterns. Maybe another 4 for the actual procedure. Marcus moved to his medical computer, already pulling up the files he'd need. I'll do everything I can to make this work. Torvash nodded slowly. Thank you, Dr. Webb. Whatever the outcome, you have given us something the others would not. Hope. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Marcus worked with an intensity he hadn't felt in years, mapping Kiresh's neural structure, adapting the nanosurgical tools to work with Valerian biology, running simulation after simulation. The success rate crept upward. 62%. 65. 71. Still not good enough, but better than it had been. Kiresh sat patiently through every scan, every test, never complaining. She told Marcus about her home world, about the crystal gardens that she'd only heard described to her, about the singing mountains that resonated with harmonic frequencies. She talked about her mother, killed in the first Kreth attack, and how her father had carried her through fire and chaos to get her to safety. He blames himself, Kiresh said quietly while Marcus adjusted the neural mapping sensors. He thinks he failed us by not being there when the attack began. But, he saved me. He's always saved me. Marcus understood that guilt. He'd carried his own version for years. Your father is a good man. He is the best man, Kiresh corrected. That's why I have to do this. Not just for me, but for him. So he can stop searching. Stop sacrificing. So he can live again. Smart kid, Marcus thought. Smarter than most adults he knew. Finally, the preparations were complete. Marcus had done everything he could to stack the odds in Kiresh's favor. The simulation success rate had plateaued at 78%. It would have to be enough. They moved Kiresh to the surgical suite, such as it was. Really just a sealed section of the medical bay with better sterilization fields and more advanced monitoring equipment. Torvash stood outside the transparent barrier, his hands pressed against the glass, watching every move. Marcus initialized the nanosurgical array. Microscopic machines, each smaller than a cell, began flowing through the injectors. They would travel through Kiresh's bloodstream, navigate to her neural tissue, and begin the delicate work of creating new pathways, building connections that should have been there from birth. This is going to feel strange, Marcus warned. You might see lights, colors, fragmentary images. Try not to panic. It means the procedure is working. Kiresh nodded, lying back on the surgical table. For the first time since Marcus had met her, she looked scared. She was just a kid, he reminded himself. A brave kid, but still a kid, about to undergo experimental surgery that could kill her. Dr. Webb? Kiresh's voice was small. If I don't wake up, tell Papa that I love him. Tell him it's not his fault. Tell him to stop looking backward and start looking forward. Marcus felt his throat tighten. You can tell him yourself. You're going to wake up, Koresh. I promise. It was a stupid promise, the kind a doctor should never make. But he made it anyway. He activated the procedure. The nanomachines went to work. Marcus watched the monitors, tracking their progress through Koresh's neural system. So far, everything was going according to plan. The machines were finding their targets, beginning the cellular reconstruction, building the bridges that would carry visual information from her eyes to her brain. Koresh gasped. I see something. Lights. Colors. They're beautiful. That's good, Marcus encouraged, his eyes never leaving the monitors. That means your brain is starting to process visual input. Just stay calm. Minutes crawled by. The procedure was working. Against all odds, against all his fears, it was actually working. The nanomachines completed their programming, establishing stable neural pathways. Koresh's brain scan showed activity in regions that had been dark her entire life. The visual cortex was lighting up like a festival. Then, suddenly, something went wrong. Alarms shrieked. Koresh's body convulsed on the table. The monitors showed neural activity spiking dangerously, signals cascading out of control. The nanomachines were working too well, creating too many connections, overwhelming her system with input it had never learned to process. Sensory overload, Marcus muttered, his hands flying across the controls. Damn it, I should have anticipated this. Torvash was shouting something outside the barrier, but Marcus couldn't hear him over the alarms. All his focus was on Koresh, on the monitors showing her brain activity spiraling toward catastrophic levels. If he couldn't stop the cascade, her neural system would burn itself out. She would die, or worse, survive with massive brain damage. Marcus made a decision. He grabbed a secondary injector, loaded it with a different set of nanomachines. These weren't designed for construction. They were designed for regulation, for controlling the very machines he'd just introduced into Koresh's system. He'd planned to use them as a safety measure if anything went wrong, but they were untested, theoretical. He injected them anyway. The regulatory nanomachines spread through Koresh's system, seeking out their construction counterparts. They began limiting the neural pathway growth, establishing control protocols, creating filters that would prevent sensory overload. The alarms continued screaming. Koresh's convulsions intensified. Then, slowly, her brain activity began to stabilize. The cascade stopped. The signals organized themselves into coherent patterns. The alarms fell silent. Koresh went still on the table. Marcus held his breath, watching the life support monitors. Heartbeat steady. Respiration normal. Neural activity within acceptable ranges. She was alive. But, was the procedure successful? Marcus deactivated the surgical field and moved to Koresh's side. Her crystalline skin had lost some of its shimmer, turned almost gray with stress. Her eyes remained closed. Koresh? Marcus said softly. Can you hear me? Her eyes opened. And, for the first time in her life, Koresh saw. She stared up at Marcus, her eyes wide with wonder. They were a striking amber color, flecked with gold, beautiful and, now functional. She looked at him, really looked at him, and tears began streaming down her face. You're crying, Marcus said, smiling. That's a good sign. It means your tear ducts are working in response to emotional stimulus. Koresh laughed, a sound full of joy and disbelief. She raised her hand in front of her face, staring at it like she'd never seen a hand before. Which, of course, she hadn't. Papa, she whispered. Papa, where are you? Torvash burst through the barrier, not caring about sterile protocols anymore. He rushed to his daughter's side, and Koresh turned to look at him. Her face transformed, joy and love and recognition all mixing together. Papa, she said again, reaching up to touch his face. You're so beautiful. Everyone told me you were scarred and frightening, but you're beautiful.
Torvash, the hardened warrior who had fought through a dozen battles and carried his daughter across a burning world, broke down completely. He held Koresh close, his massive frame shaking with sobs, and Marcus had to turn away to wipe his own eyes. They stayed like that for a long time, father and daughter reunited in a way they'd never been before. Marcus busied himself with the post-operative scans, making sure everything was stable.
The neural pathways were holding.
Koresh's brain was adapting to its new ability with remarkable speed. The procedure had worked. Eventually, Koresh fell asleep, exhausted from the procedure and the overwhelming flood of new sensations.
Marcus and Torvash moved to the medical bay's small office.
"I don't know how to thank you," Torvash said.
"You've given her everything."
Marcus shook his head. "She's going to need follow-up care. Regular scans to make sure the pathways remain stable.
It's possible she'll need adjustments as her brain continues to adapt."
"Whatever she needs, wherever we need to go, I'll make it happen."
Torvash paused. "Dr. Webb, I know what you used. That technology, it's banned in most civilized systems. You took a great risk using it." Marcus stiffened. "How did you know? I'm not just a refugee. I was a military intelligence officer before the war. I recognize restricted technology when I see it."
Torvash met his gaze.
"I won't report you.
You saved my daughter.
My life, my honor, everything I have is yours if you ever need it."
"I don't want anything except for Koresh to be happy and healthy," Marcus said.
"That's payment enough."
Torvash bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect among his people. Then, he returned to his daughter's side, refusing to leave her even for a moment.
Marcus finally allowed himself to relax.
The procedure had worked.
Koresh could see.
For the first time in years, he felt like he'd done something right, like maybe he wasn't just hiding from his past but actually moving forward. He had no idea that he'd just painted a target on his back that would bring death and destruction down on everyone he knew. The black market technology he'd used sent out a traceable signature. And, somewhere in the depths of space, automated monitoring systems detected that signature and sent an alert to people who had been searching for that stolen equipment for 5 long years.
People who didn't forgive, didn't forget, and didn't leave witnesses.
The hunters were coming. And Marcus Webb had just told them exactly where to find him. 3 days after the surgery, Marcus stood in the station's observation deck, watching Koresh discover the universe with her new eyes. She pressed close to the transparent aluminum viewport, gasping at every star, every distant nebula, every ship that passed by. Torvash stood beside her, patient as she asked him to name everything she saw.
"That one, Papa." "What's that bright one?" "That's Aldebaran. It's a red giant star, one of the brightest in this sector. It's beautiful. Everything is beautiful."
Koresh turned to Marcus, her amber eyes sparkling with joy.
"Dr. Webb, thank you. Thank you for giving me this."
Marcus smiled, but something nagged at the back of his mind. A feeling he'd learned long ago never to ignore. The station felt wrong somehow.
Too quiet.
The usual background chatter on the communication channels had dropped to almost nothing. Several ships that had been docked for repairs had departed suddenly, ahead of schedule. His comlink buzzed.
It was Harlow, the station administrator. "Marcus, I need you in my office. Now."
The tone sent ice through Marcus's veins. He excused himself from Koresh and Torvash, making his way through the cramped corridors of Refuge Station. The place was a mess, cobbled together from decommissioned freighters and mining equipment, barely holding together at the best of times. But it was home to refugees from a dozen species, people who had nowhere else to go.
People who depended on Marcus to keep them alive. Harlow's office was really just a converted storage room with a desk and a view screen.
The administrator herself was a stocky woman with gray hair and scars that told stories she never shared. She looked up as Marcus entered, her expression grim. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. 3 days ago, someone used banned technology on this station. The kind of technology that broadcasts a signature across subspace.
The kind that people pay attention to. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. How do you know?
Because 20 minutes ago, I got a priority message from an old contact in the Galactic Authority. She warned me that a recovery team has been dispatched to this station. Their target is Dr. Marcus Webb, wanted for the theft of restricted nanosurgical equipment from a corporate research facility.
They'll be here in less than 6 hours. Recovery team, Marcus repeated.
That was corporate speak for assassins.
Who sent them? Nexus Biomedical Corporation.
They want their equipment back, and they want you silenced.
Permanently. Harlow leaned forward. Marcus, what the hell did you do?
Marcus slumped into a chair. 5 years ago, I was working for Nexus as a lead researcher. They were developing nanosurgical technology that could cure diseases, repair injuries, extend lifespans.
Revolutionary stuff.
But then, I found out what they really planned to do with it. They were going to weaponize it, sell it to the highest bidders as a way to create super soldiers or assassinate targets with untraceable methods.
I couldn't let that happen. So you stole it.
I stole it, destroyed their research, and disappeared. I thought if I stayed quiet, stayed hidden, they'd eventually give up looking for me.
But I used the equipment to help Koresh.
The signature must have led them right to me.
Harlow was silent for a long moment.
You should have told me what you were carrying. I could have helped you hide it, shield the signature.
I know. I'm sorry. I never thought I'd actually use it. Marcus stood. I'll leave. Right now.
I'll take a shuttle and head for the outer systems.
Maybe I can lead them away from here. They'll shoot you down the moment you launch.
And even if they don't, they'll still come here to verify the signal. They'll tear this station apart looking for the equipment.
Harlow shook her head. Running won't help. Then, what do you suggest?
I suggest you prepare to fight. Marcus stared at her.
Fight? Harlow, I'm a doctor, not a soldier. I wouldn't last 5 seconds against a corporate recovery team. You won't be alone. This station is full of people who owe you their lives.
Refugees you've patched up, kept alive when any other doctor would have given up.
You think they'll just stand by and let Nexus take you? Harlow pulled up a display showing the station's defense systems.
They were pitiful, barely enough to deter pirates, certainly not enough to stop a professional military operation.
Besides, we've got one advantage. Nexus doesn't know the layout of this station. We do.
Marcus wanted to argue, to insist that fighting was suicide, that everyone would be safer if he just turned himself in.
But he knew Harlow was right. Nexus wouldn't leave witnesses.
Even if he surrendered, they'd probably destroy the station just to make sure no one talked about what they'd seen.
How long do we have? Marcus asked. 5.5 hours, give or take. I'm calling an emergency assembly.
Everyone on this station deserves to know what's coming and make their own choice about whether to stay or evacuate.
The next hour was chaos.
Harlow gathered everyone in the station's central hub, a large chamber that served as marketplace, social center, and emergency shelter.
Nearly 200 beings packed the space, representing species from across known space.
They listened as Harlow explained the situation, and as Marcus stood before them and admitted his past.
I'm sorry, Marcus told them. I never wanted to bring danger to this place. If you want to leave, I understand.
There's still time to evacuate. Silence greeted his words.
Then, Torvash stood, his massive Valerian frame drawing every eye.
Dr. Webb saved my daughter's life 3 days ago. Before that, he saved mine when I arrived here with wounds that should have killed me.
I will not abandon him now. Torvash's voice rang through the chamber. Any warrior who flees in the face of danger is no warrior at all. I stand with Dr. Webb.
A chorus of agreement rose from the crowd.
Marcus saw faces he recognized.
The Corvan mechanic whose arm he'd reattached after an industrial accident. The human trader whose daughter he'd delivered when she went into early labor. The elderly Sithrak whose degenerative condition he'd managed with improvised treatments. All of them, standing up, pledging to fight. "You don't understand," Marcus said desperately. "These people are professionals. Trained killers. Most of us aren't fighters."
"Then, we'll learn," said Harlow. "Or we'll die trying. But, we won't let them take you without a fight." The assembly transformed into a war council. Harlow pulled up schematics of the station, identifying choke points and defensive positions. Torvash, with his military background, suggested tactics for defending the narrow corridors and cramped spaces. The refugees organized themselves into groups, some preparing to fight, others gathering the youngest and oldest for evacuation to the far side of the station. Marcus found himself in the medical bay, preparing for casualties he prayed wouldn't come. Koresh appeared in the doorway, her father behind her. "Dr. Webb, I want to help," she said. "Absolutely not. You just had major surgery. You need to stay safe." "My eyes work fine. Better than fine, actually. I can see things other people miss. Details. Movements." Koresh moved closer. "You gave me sight. Let me use it to help protect you." Marcus looked at Torvash, hoping for support. The Valerian just shrugged. "She is her mother's daughter. Stubborn as stone. If I try to lock her away, she'll just escape and do something more dangerous." "Fine," Marcus said, knowing he was outnumbered. "But, you stay with your father, and you don't take unnecessary risks." Koresh grinned, the first truly mischievous expression Marcus had seen from her. "I promise to only take necessary risks." Time crawled forward. The station prepared as best it could. Makeshift barricades went up at key intersections. What few weapons they had were distributed to those who knew how to use them. Emergency bulkheads were tested and retested. Medical supplies were moved to secondary locations in case the main bay was compromised. And then, with 1 hour remaining before the estimated arrival of the Nexus recovery team, something unexpected happened. A ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. But, it wasn't a corporate vessel. The signature identified it as belonging to the Galactic Authority, the loose confederation of species that maintain something resembling law and order in the settled regions of space. Harlow's comlink crackled with an incoming transmission. "Refuge Station, this is Captain Irina Salas of the GA enforcement ship Meridian. We've received intelligence about an imminent attack on your position. Request permission to dock and render assistance." Harlow and Marcus exchanged glances. "This could be a trap," Marcus said. "Or it could be salvation." Harlow opened the channel. "Captain Salas, permission granted. Docking Bay 3. 15 minutes later, Marcus stood in the docking bay as Captain Salas disembarked with a squad of 6 GA enforcers. The captain was a tall woman with dark skin and eyes that had seen too much violence. Her team looked professional, competent, and heavily armed. "Dr. Webb, I presume," Salas said, extending her hand. "We don't have much time, so I'll be direct. Nexus Biomedical has dispatched their best recovery team to eliminate you and retrieve their stolen property. But, Nexus has made enemies within the Galactic Authority. Powerful people who would very much like to see their illegal weapons research exposed. So you're here to protect me?" Marcus asked, hardly daring to believe it. "We're here to ensure you survive long enough to testify about what Nexus was really doing with that nanosurgical technology. If we can capture the recovery team in the act of attempting assassination, even better. Corporate kill teams operating in GA space is something we take seriously." Salas glanced around the docking bay. "Though I'll admit, I expected a more defensible position. This place is a nightmare from a tactical standpoint." "It's home," Harlow said firmly. Salas smiled slightly. "Then, let's make sure it stays standing. My people will coordinate with your defenders. Where's your security center?" The next hour was a blur of activity.
Sullus's team integrated seamlessly with the station's ragtag defenders, setting up proper defensive positions, establishing communication protocols, and generally transforming chaos into something resembling order. Marcus tried to help, but he was more hindrance than assistance when it came to military matters. He retreated to the medical bay to wait. Koresh found him there, staring at his hands. "Are you scared?" she asked.
Terrified, Marcus admitted. "I've spent 5 years running from this moment. Part of me still wants to run. But you won't." "No. Running is how I got into this mess in the first place. Maybe it's time to stand and face the consequences."
Koresh sat beside him.
"My father told me something once. He said that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing what's right anyway."
"You're the bravest person I know, Dr. Webb." Before Marcus could respond, alarms blared throughout the station.
Sullus's voice crackled over every speaker. "All hands, we have incoming.
3 ships, military configuration. This is not a drill.
Everyone to defensive positions."
Marcus's heart hammered in his chest. The recovery team had arrived.
He pulled up the external cameras on his medical terminal.
3 sleek ships approached the station, their hulls painted matte black, their profiles designed for stealth and violence.
They moved with predatory grace, circling refuge station like sharks around wounded prey.
The lead ship broadcast on all frequencies. The voice was cold, mechanical, stripped of emotion. "Refuge station, you are harboring a fugitive wanted by Nexus Biomedical Corporation. Surrender Dr. Marcus Webb and the stolen equipment immediately, and no one else needs to be harmed."
"You have 5 minutes to comply." Captain Sullus responded.
"This is GA Enforcer Captain Sullus aboard Refuge Station.
Dr. Webb is under Galactic Authority protection.
Any attack on this station will be considered an act of aggression against the GA and will be responded to accordingly. You are ordered to stand down and prepare to be boarded for questioning."
Silence. Then, the mechanical voice spoke again. "Your presence is noted and irrelevant. This is a corporate matter. Interfering will have consequences." 5 minutes, Sullus said to her team.
"They'll try to board us.
Probably multiple entry points to divide our forces. Remember, we want at least one of them alive for questioning."
Marcus watched the countdown timer on his screen. 5 minutes until violence came to the place he'd tried to make a sanctuary.
5 minutes until people would die because of choices he'd made years ago.
Koresh squeezed his hand.
"Whatever happens, you gave me sight. You gave me the universe.
That was worth any risk."
Marcus squeezed back, hoping she was right. The 5 minutes expired. And all hell broke loose.
The Nexus ships opened fire, not with weapons designed to destroy, but with cutting lasers meant to breach the station's hull. They were precise, surgical, creating openings just large enough for boarding teams to enter. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut throughout the station, sealing off the breached sections, but Marcus knew it was only a matter of time. The recovery team was inside.
And they were coming for him.
The first breach team came through Section 7, a storage area near the outer hull. Sullus had predicted it perfectly, positioning 3 of her enforcers there along with a dozen station defenders. Marcus heard the firefight over the comm channels, the sharp crack of energy weapons, the shouted orders and screams of pain.
Then, silence.
"Breach team neutralized," came the report from one of Sullus's people.
2 hostiles down, 3 escaped into the ventilation system.
Their armored end, carrying military-grade equipment.
1 of ours is wounded. Marcus grabbed his emergency medical kit. "I'm on my way."
"Negative," Sullus's voice cut in.
"Doctor, you stay where you are. That's exactly what they want, to draw you out into the open. I'm a doctor. I can't just sit here while people are bleeding." "You can and you will. That's an order." Sullus's tone left no room for argument.
"I have medics who can handle field wounds. Your job is to stay alive long enough to testify." Marcus wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. He paced the medical bay like a caged animal, listening to the battle unfold through the comm system.
2 more breaches in quick succession. More firefights. More casualties.
The recovery team was pushing hard, trying to overwhelm the defenders through sheer aggression. But they hadn't counted on how fiercely the refugees would fight. In Section 4, a Corvan mechanic named Krill jury-rigged a plasma torch into an improvised flamethrower, forcing a recovery team to retreat through a corridor that Torvash then collapsed with carefully placed explosives. In Section 9, a group of human traders used their knowledge of the station's layout to lead another team into an ambush, trapping them in a cargo bay that was then vented to space. The recovery team had expected frightened refugees.
Instead, they found people fighting for their home with desperate creativity and absolute determination.
But the defenders were taking casualties.
Marcus heard the reports filtering in. Minor injuries mostly, but those would add up.
And the recovery team hadn't committed all their forces yet. They were probing, testing, looking for weaknesses.
Looking for him. A proximity alarm shrieked in the medical bay.
Someone was trying to access the corridor directly outside. Marcus grabbed the nearest thing he could use as a weapon, which turned out to be a surgical tray.
Not exactly intimidating, but it was all he had.
The door exploded inward in a shower of sparks. 2 figures entered, moving with liquid grace, their armor covered in active camouflage that made them shimmer like heat mirages. They carried weapons that looked far too advanced for legal military hardware. Marcus barely had time to raise the surgical tray before Torvash appeared from the side corridor, slamming into one of the armored figures with enough force to crack the medical bay's wall. They went down in a tangle of limbs and violence. The second figure swiveled toward Marcus, weapon raised.
Koresh dropped from the ceiling ventilation shaft directly onto the figure's back.
She was tiny compared to the armored soldier, but she wrapped her arms around their helmet and twisted hard. The figure staggered, trying to shake her off. Marcus threw the surgical tray, which accomplished nothing except annoying the soldier, but it distracted them long enough for Koresh to find the armor's emergency release and pop the helmet seal. The helmet came off, revealing a young man with cold eyes and a face tattooed with corporate loyalty marks. He grabbed Koresh and threw her against the wall hard enough to make Marcus's heart stop. But Koresh rolled with the impact, came up in a crouch, her new eyes tracking every movement with inhuman precision.
"Papa, left side, hip joint, there's a weakness," she shouted.
Torvash, still grappling with the first soldier, adjusted his grip and drove his thumb into exactly the spot Koresh had identified.
The armor cracked.
The soldiers screamed. Torvash lifted him and threw him into his companion with such force that both crashed through the medical bay's interior wall into the next room.
Silence.
Torvash and Koresh were both breathing hard.
Marcus rushed to Koresh, checking her for injuries.
"I'm fine," she said, wincing slightly.
"Just bruised."
"You were supposed to stay with your father." "I was with my father," Koresh pointed out reasonably.
"He was here."
Torvash chuckled darkly.
"My daughter makes a good point, Doctor. And she saved your life." Her eyes saw what mine could not, the weaknesses in their armor.
Marcus wanted to be angry, but he couldn't argue with results.
"Thank you. Both of you."
The medical bay was wrecked, but Marcus's emergency supplies were intact. They grabbed what they could carry and retreated deeper into the station toward a secondary medical post that Harlow had set up. Along the way, they passed other defenders, some wounded, all exhausted, but still fighting. The battle raged for another hour. The recovery team pushed hard, trying to reach the station's control center where Solace had made her command post. They made it to within 2 corridors before a combined force of enforcers and refugees stopped them cold. The fighting was brutal, close-quarters combat in cramped spaces where superior training and equipment mattered less than knowing every corner and shortcut. Marcus reached the secondary medical post and immediately went to work.
Wounded defenders streamed in. Burns from energy weapons. Lacerations from shrapnel.
One enforcer with a collapsed lung that Marcus had to reinflate with a chest tube he assembled from spare parts and medical tubing. He worked with steady hands and singular focus, pushing his fear aside, becoming the doctor these people needed. Koresh worked alongside him, her new eyes allowing her to see things he missed. She spotted internal bleeding before the symptoms became obvious. She noticed the subtle color changes that indicated shock or infection. She was a natural, absorbing medical knowledge at an incredible rate. "You'd make a good doctor," Marcus told her as they worked on a Corvin with severe burns. "Maybe I will be, someday," Koresh said, carefully applying synthetic skin.
"If we survive this."
"When we survive this," Marcus corrected. The comm system crackled.
"This is Solace. All units, the recovery team is retreating.
They're falling back to their ships. Hold your positions and do not pursue."
A ragged cheer went up from the defenders. They'd done it.
Against all odds, they'd held the station.
But the celebration was premature.
Marcus watched through the external cameras as the recovery team's ships withdrew to a safe distance. Then, the lead ship powered up its main weapons, heavy plasma cannons that could crack a moon.
"Oh no," Marcus whispered. "They're going to destroy the station." Solace's voice was grim. "All personnel, initiate evacuation protocols.
Get to the escape pods and shuttles.
We have maybe 3 minutes before those cannons are fully charged." Chaos erupted.
200 people trying to evacuate through a limited number of escape routes, knowing they didn't have enough time. Marcus helped where he could, directing the wounded toward the nearest pods, making sure the most vulnerable got loaded first.
He saw families torn apart in the panic. Saw people making impossible choices about what to save and what to abandon.
Saw the home they'd built together about to be destroyed because of him. "This is my fault," Marcus said to Harlow as they worked.
"I brought this here.
I should have left years ago." "You brought hope here," Harlow corrected, shoving another group toward a pod.
"You gave people a reason to live. Don't you dare diminish that." The plasma cannons reached 80% charge.
The lead ship broadcast another message.
"Final warning. Surrender DR. Web or the station will be destroyed."
Marcus made his decision. He grabbed a portable comm unit and opened a channel to the recovery team.
"This is Dr. Marcus Webb. I'm calling off the evacuation.
I'll surrender myself in exchange for letting everyone else go."
"You want me and the equipment? You can have both. Just leave these people alone."
Marcus, no, Solace said immediately.
"That's not how this works." "It's my choice," Marcus said. "I'm done running. I'm done letting other people pay for my mistakes."
He headed for the docking bay, knowing he was walking to his death, but accepting it.
He'd saved Koresh. That had to be enough. That had to matter.
He made it to the airlock before Torvash blocked his path. "Move aside," Marcus said.
"No." The Valorian's voice was flat. "You gave my daughter her sight. I swore my life and honor to you. I will not let you throw yourself away." "I'm not throwing myself away. I'm saving everyone else." "By dying? What does that teach my daughter? That sacrifice means giving up?" Torvash shook his head. "There's another way. There has to be."
Before Marcus could respond, Koresh's voice rang out over the comm system.
"I found something. DR.
Webb, I was looking at the technical specifications for the nanosurgical equipment. There's a remote shutdown protocol. If we can transmit it to their ships, we can disable the technology and make it worthless to them."
Marcus blinked.
"That protocol requires a specialized transmitter."
"We don't have one."
"But their ships do," Captain Solace cut in, understanding immediately. "They're using those transmitters to coordinate their boarding teams. If we can hack into their communications and piggyback the shutdown protocol onto their signal, we can destroy the very thing they came here to steal. And, once it's gone, they have no reason to destroy the station," Harlow added.
"They failed their mission. Better to cut their losses and run." Hope flared in Marcus's chest. Can we do it in time? Those cannons are at 90% charge.
We can try, Salas said. But, I need the exact protocol sequence. Marcus pulled up the data on his personal device, the information he'd memorized years ago when he stole the equipment. He transmitted it to Salas, who immediately started working with her technical specialist to hack the recovery team's communication system.
The plasma cannons hit 95% charge. Come on, Marcus whispered, watching the timer count down.
Around him, people waited in escape pods, ready to launch, hoping for a miracle.
98%. Got it, Salas's specialist reported. Transmitting now.
The shutdown protocol burst across every frequency, piggybacking on the recovery team's own communication network. Marcus watched as the nanosurgical equipment in his secured locker began to dissolve, the microscopic machines breaking down into inert components.
5 years of running. 5 years of hiding. All destroying itself in a matter of seconds.
The recovery team's ships went silent.
The plasma cannons, just seconds from firing, powered down.
Then, the lead ship turned and jumped to faster than light, followed immediately by the other two. They were gone, vanished into the depths of space, their mission failed. The station erupted in cheers. People poured out of escape pods, hugging each other, crying with relief. The defenders who'd fought so hard slumped against walls, letting the adrenaline finally drain away. Marcus sank to his knees in the docking bay, overwhelmed.
It was over. Actually over.
The equipment was destroyed, which meant Nexus had no reason to hunt him anymore.
He was free. Torvash helped him to his feet. You see, Doctor? There is always another way.
Koresh appeared, throwing her arms around Marcus.
We did it. We actually did it.
Marcus hugged her back, this brave girl who'd helped save him just days after he'd given her sight.
Thank you. Both of you. Everyone. Captain Salas approached, looking exhausted but satisfied. Dr. Webb, I still need you to come with me. Not under arrest, she added quickly, seeing his expression. We need your testimony about what Nexus was planning with that technology. With your statement and the evidence we've gathered from this attack, we can shut down their entire weapons research division. Marcus nodded. He'd expected this. How long will it take? A few weeks, maybe a month. Then, you're free to go wherever you want. Salas smiled slightly. Though something tells me you'll come back here.
Marcus looked around at the damaged station, at the people who'd fought for him, at the home they'd all built together.
Yeah. I think I will.
The next few days were a whirlwind.
Marcus gave his testimony to GA investigators, detailing everything he knew about Nexus's illegal weapons program. Salas's team gathered evidence from the recovered armor and equipment left behind by the recovery team.
The case against Nexus Biomedical grew stronger by the hour.
Meanwhile, Refuge Station began the work of healing and rebuilding.
The breaches were patched.
The damaged sections repaired.
The wounded recovered under Marcus's care. And, slowly, life returned to something resembling normal. Koresh continued to adapt to her sight with remarkable speed. Her brain had fully integrated the new neural pathways, and she was seeing things with a clarity that sometimes surpassed even those who'd been sighted their entire lives. She spent hours studying everything she could, soaking up the visual world like a sponge. I want to be a doctor, she announced one day while helping Marcus in the medical bay.
Like you. I want to help people the way you helped me. Marcus smiled. You'd be brilliant at it. But, it takes years of study. Then, I'll study for years. I have time now. Thanks to you, I have all the time in the world. Torvash watched his daughter with pride and gratitude. He'd approached Marcus privately to thank him again, this time with tears in his eyes. You've given me my daughter back twice now. Once when you saved her life, and once when you gave her sight. I don't know how to repay that debt. You already did, Marcus said. You stood by me when I needed it most. You fought for me. That's more than payment enough.
A week later, Marcus received word that the GA had arrested several Nexus executives in connection with the weapons program. The corporation's stock had crashed. Their research facilities were being seized. Justice, slow and imperfect, but justice nonetheless.
And Marcus was free.
Officially, legally, completely free. He stood in the observation deck, the same place where Koresh had first seen the stars, and contemplated what came next.
He could go anywhere now. Return to Earth. Start fresh somewhere civilized, somewhere safe.
But, when he thought about the future, all he saw was this ramshackle station full of refugees who needed a doctor who would never give up on them.
Harlow found him there. So what's the verdict? You staying or going? Marcus smiled. I'm staying. Someone needs to keep this place running, and I'm too stubborn to quit now.
Good, Harlow said. Because I just received word that another group of refugees is heading our way.
50 people, mostly families, fleeing the expansion of the Kreth Empire. They're going to need medical care when they arrive. Then, I'd better get the medical bay ready, Marcus said.
He returned to work, to the life he'd built, to the people who'd become his family. The equipment that had defined his past was gone, destroyed to save his future.
But that was okay.
He didn't need miraculous technology to be a good doctor. He just needed skill, determination, and a willingness to never give up on his patients. 3 months later, Marcus stood in the medical bay conducting his first official teaching session. Koresh sat front and center, absorbing every word, her amber eyes bright with determination. Behind her, 3 other refugees who'd expressed interest in learning medicine took notes. The first rule of medicine, Marcus told them, is do no harm. But, the second rule, the one that's just as important, is never stop trying to help. Even when it seems impossible.
Even when everyone tells you to give up.
You keep fighting for your patient until the very end. Koresh raised her hand.
And, what if helping one patient puts others at risk? What if doing what's right is dangerous?
Marcus thought about that question, about the choices he'd made, about the battle they'd fought. Then, you do what's right and deal with the consequences. You don't let fear stop you from helping someone who needs it.
That's what it means to be a healer.
Outside the medical bay, Refuge Station continued its constant dance with entropy, systems breaking and being repaired, people coming and going, life happening in all its messy glory.
It wasn't much. It wasn't safe. It certainly wasn't comfortable. But, it was home.
And, for the first time in 5 years, Marcus Webb was exactly where he belonged. The story of the doctor who gave sight to a blind alien girl spread through the refugee networks, growing and changing with each telling. Some versions made Marcus out to be a hero.
Others focused on Koresh's bravery. A few even got the details right. But, they all ended the same way.
With a small station on the edge of civilized space, where a human doctor and his makeshift family proved that sometimes the greatest acts of defiance aren't about fighting empires or toppling corporations. Sometimes they're simply about refusing to stop caring, even when caring is dangerous. Marcus received a message one evening from an old colleague, someone he hadn't spoken to since he fled Earth.
The message was brief. I heard what you did. The whole medical community is talking about it. You gave up everything to do what was right, and somehow you came out the other side. I'm proud of you, Marcus. Your mentor would have been proud too.
Marcus read the message 3 times, feeling something break loose in his chest.
Forgiveness, maybe. Or permission to finally forgive himself. He composed a reply, then deleted it, then wrote it again. Finally, he sent a simple response. I'm just trying to be the doctor I always wanted to be. Thank you for remembering.
That night, he stood in the observation deck with Koresh, looking out at the stars. She'd taken to coming here whenever she needed to think, overwhelmed by the beauty of a universe she was still learning to see.
Dr.
Webb, she said quietly.
Do you ever regret it? Everything you went through because you helped me?
Marcus looked at her, this brilliant girl who was going to do amazing things with the gift of sight he'd given her.
Not for a second. You were worth the risk. You'll always be worth it.
Koresh smiled, her eyes reflecting the starlight.
Then, I'm going to make sure I live up to that. I'm going to be the best doctor this sector has ever seen. And, I'm going to help people the way you helped me. I believe you will, Marcus said. And, he did. Because if he'd learned anything from this whole ordeal, it was that humans might not be the strongest species in the galaxy, or the fastest, or the smartest. But, they had something that mattered just as much. They had the stubborn refusal to accept that anything was impossible. They had the courage to try even when failure seemed certain. They had the compassion to help, even when helping came at a terrible cost. That was what made humanity special. Not their technology or their ships or their weapons. It was their unshakable belief that every life mattered, that every person deserved a chance, that no one should be left behind. Marcus had given sight to a blind alien girl because it was the right thing to do. And, in return, she'd helped save his life and given him back something he thought he'd lost forever. Purpose. Hope. A reason to keep fighting. That was the real story. Not the battle or the escape or the dramatic confrontation. It was simpler than that. It was about a doctor who refused to give up and a girl who refused to let him. It was about people from 100 different worlds coming together to protect one of their own. It was about found family and second chances and the stubborn insistence that kindness was never wasted, even in a cold universe. Koresh touched his arm. Come on. Papa is making his traditional Valerian stew. He says it's to celebrate my first month of medical training. I think he just likes feeding people. Marcus laughed. He learned that from the humans. We're terrible influences. They left the observation deck together, heading toward the communal area where Torvash was indeed cooking enough food to feed half the station. Music was playing, the strange harmonies of a dozen cultures blending into something uniquely beautiful. People were laughing, sharing stories, living their lives. And, Marcus realized something profound. He'd spent 5 years running from his past, hiding from his mistakes, convinced he didn't deserve peace or happiness. But, here, in this impossible place, surrounded by people he'd helped and who'd helped him in return, he'd found both. He wasn't hiding anymore. He wasn't running. He was standing still, facing forward, ready for whatever came next. And, for a human in a vast and often hostile galaxy, that was the greatest act of defiance there was. To stand your ground. To help those who needed it. To refuse to let fear or danger or impossible odds stop you from doing what was right. That was the human way. That was Marcus Webb's way. And it always would be.